Well, this is not the first area to have local lockdown restrictions imposed, and with Boris Johnson being very, very clear that he really does not want to relock everyone, I think it's fair to say that it may well not be the last place to have these kind of restrictions. So why here and why now? Especially bear in mind, in none of these places, the rate of infection is anywhere near the kind of numbers that they have in Bolton, for example. They see the timing of this as crucial. They say that right now is the right point. They're also seeing a shift in things. There's been a rapid increase in numbers in the last week, and also there's been a change in who is being affected. They say more older people are contracting COVID-19. They've had an increase in the number of people seriously ill and needing hospital treatment, and they have started to see an increase in the number of people dying. A symbol of the North and of freedom, looking out over mile after mile where freedom is about to be curtailed.
The battle against coronavirus is not over. I know that the people of the Northeast will come together to defeat this virus, as defeat it we must.
Those who've pushed for tighter restrictions say they're needed in order to save lives. For those who are being told to follow the rules, like in Lowfell, where Steph's been running this barbershop for 20 years, as the announcement was made, came the realisation.
It is depressing for a lot of people. It's going to have a huge effect on people's mental health. It's quite frightening. I'm scared.
The realisation about what's ahead and the impact on plans and families and quality of life.
I can't go and see my mum. She lives in Gosforth. I can't go and see her because she's not in my bubble. She's in my sister's bubble. So now I won't be able to go and see her. I can't see my sister. I can't see my daughter. My daughter lives in Manchester. Can't go and see her. It's her birthday coming up in a couple of weeks.
We are trying very hard to survive. And if there's many more measures comes in, that's going to impact our businesses. We won't survive.
From tomorrow, in Northumberland, North Tyneside, South Tyneside, Newcastle upon Tyne, Gateshead, Sunderland and County Durham, residents should not socialise with other people outside their own households or support bubble. Hospitality for food and drink will be restricted to table service only, and late night restrictions of operating hours will be introduced, so leisure and entertainment venues must close between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m.
Less than a week after the rule of 6 came in, from midnight for almost 2 million people, the rule is more like work but no play. In Gateshead, the Director of Public Health told me test and trace data shows the virus spreading in people's homes and also in pubs, although she knows the data does have gaps.
So there are issues around testing, absolutely. There is a part that we don't know about, and I am worried that the rates are actually higher in Gateshead and, than we actually can see in terms of the COVID positive tests.
Are you worried about the inequalities that are being widened at the moment, not least with childcare?
Yeah, so completely concerned about that, because we know the important role that informal childcare plays to the economy in our region, and we also know the direct impact it'll have on those who are lowest paid, where they can't afford to pay for formal childcare but heavily rely on family members to support them.
I'm told behind the scenes the government's being pushed to change the restrictions to allow informal childcare and being asked to assess the impact on women in terms of equality. With schools already juggling bubbles and distance and backfilling self-isolating teachers, at Harlow Green Primary, the head told me they don't need any extra hurdles, like who's legally allowed to look after children before and after school.
Now, the added stress of maybe some of their networks closing down because of the lack of being able to come into contact with them is going to add to problems of getting children in and out of school when they've got care needs and other family members who may be doing that, or friends who do that for them so they can get to work and support the economy. Those kind of stresses are going to cause further problems.
As another local lockdown begins in an area so big, it's hardly local. Will the rules work? Will people stick to them? And to what extent will there be other consequences for livelihoods and lives?
Well, with me now is the leader of Newcastle City Council, Nick Forbes, and Kim McGuinness, Northumbria Police and Crime Commissioner. Nick Forbes, first, are these measures enough? Too much? Do you support them?
We approached government and asked for additional measures to be put in place because we could see the exponential rise in positive test results coming back over the last week or so. So we approached government on Monday. We put forward a series of proposals based on the evidence that we've had from our contact tracing, and that's covering areas like pubs and bars, people's households, and some grassroots sports.
But Monday, and it's now Thursday. I mean, would you have liked swift reaction?
Well, the Secretary of State announced the final version of the regulations in the House of Commons this morning. We actually got the published list just an hour ago, which is cutting it a bit fine.
Right.
And I'm concerned that some of the exemptions that we asked for haven't been allowed, which is going to cause some big problems across our region.
This is about grandparents being able to look after kids.
We're particularly concerned about informal caring arrangements where, say, grandparents look after kids before or after school. We asked for an exemption to allow that to happen. The government doesn't appear to have granted us that, which means that we've got to take that up with them as a matter of urgency because it's going to cause chaos for many families.
Kim McGuinness, do you think, given the length of time all of this chaos and upheaval has gone on for, do you think people will comply with these new regulations, this new order?
I think people have been great throughout this. You know, we have seen people come together and respond really, really well. The council have asked for these measures for good reason, and so it is a case of asking people to comply, because every time they don't, and if the police have to respond, it might be that the police aren't responding to something more important.
But you know, there's a lot of nightlife in this area.
There is.
Students are coming back. Is it remotely enforceable to have a 10 p.m. curfew, which is the most draconian restriction anywhere in place in the country, isn't it?
I think it's very difficult. It's a big ask of people, but the reason that this is being asked of now is because it will prevent further measures later. And as for enforcement, you know, the council will enforce these regulations first, particularly on licensing. We'll ask people to comply, and if they refuse, that's when the police will have to get involved. But I'm hoping that won't have to happen.
Well, do you think the police are going to be a bit tougher than they have been in the past? Because it's been, you know, the number of fines issued haven't been vast, have they?
I think the police will inform and educate first. If people refuse, they will have to get involved, because people want to see other people who are breaking the rules. They want to see enforcement.
There's a lot of calls for more sort of devolution, in a way, of control of this whole thing to a local level. Are you getting the information you need from government about where infections are?
We're getting the data flows around test results now. It took a long time to get them. My big worry, is that we need more testing capacity immediately in order to be able to understand where the virus is, particularly as we're expecting large numbers of students coming back to our city in the next few weeks. We can't deal with a massive increase in our population without additional testing capacity now.
Well, how much under are you? Do you have any idea?
Well, we know that our centres run by the national system are already over capacity because people are being sent out of the region for tests. So we know we've already got a real demand for additional testing capacity. Unless that's fixed, we're not going to be able to keep on top of where the virus is, and people are going to still be in the ridiculous position of having to drive half the length of the country just to get a test.
When you raise this with central government, what do they say?
Well, we asked for additional testing capacity. We're still waiting to hear back from them, as we're waiting to hear back on additional resources. Frankly, I'm worried that the government are being a bit complacent here. We're acting now swiftly, decisively, to try to head off a further lockdown, and I just wish our intent here was matched by government action too.
Kim McGuinness, do you think a further lockdown is going to be inevitable here and across the country, and will people stomach it?
I really hope it isn't inevitable. I think that when councils like in our area do react swiftly, then hopefully we will see a drop in the number of cases. That's why this action is being taken now rather than waiting till later for a stricter lockdown. But I couldn't agree more with Nick in the fact that we need more testing, we need results quicker, we need them in our area, and we need people not to be being asked to go further afield, because that's what will inevitably get a lag in results and have us in this position for longer.
Kim McGuinness, Nick Forbes, thanks very much.